But that's a question that I actually wanted to ask all you guys when you were talking a second ago about like media narratives. I get asked this all the time as somebody who left the left and I ended up becoming a Republican. In my opinion, you know, I used to hate Fox News as a liberal. I used to think Fox News was everything that they said was a lie and some sort of conspiracy theory and that they were doling out misinformation. Now, you know, I've spent a lot of time watching Fox News over the last 4 or 5 years, and I don't feel that way anymore. I do believe that they are absolutely biased. I think they absolutely have a point of view that they're trying to push, but I don't see examples of them blatantly lying and creating misinformation and creating completely false stories. But I do see that from left-wing media all the time. So do you think it's equal? Because I get asked this question all the time. People are like, well, Fox News does that too. Do you think they do?
MSNBC is owned by Comcast, which is owned by BlackRock. I don't know how deep it goes on Fox's end. I think Fox, what is it? 20th Century Fox is owned by Disney at this point. What's Fox News owned by
Fox
Disney?
News is I think it's still News Corp, right?
I don't know how deep BlackRock has their tentacles in Fox.
Fox doesn't play, you know, it's crazy that we're at this point where I was talking about this the other day. I used to watch CNN. I used to have it on all the time. And then one day it was just a Trump panel. And I was like, isn't something happening? And I turned on Fox News and there were like riots erupt in Iran. And I was like, oh, wow. And I'm watching video footage of these riots. And then later there's like a big storm. And I turn on CNN and there's a panel talking about Trump. And then I change the channel and it's Fox. And they're like, prepare for the storm. Big storm's coming. Here's what people are saying. And I was just like, CNN is not news. Mm-hmm. You know what I think? Jeff Zucker was a reality TV guy. And so he approached CNN. Actually, let me stop before saying CNN. I'll tell you exactly what I experienced with Fusion. This was the ABC News Univision joint venture. I leave Vice, I join Fusion, and for the first 6 to 8 months, they were like, "We're going to do news." They had a show about drug cartels and like federal agents and Mexican federal agents going after them. And then one day they were just like, "We're changing things up." They hired a new editor-in-chief whose Twitter profile was down with whiteness. And he's like a white guy, and it was a black fist. And I was told that they were shifting into mission-driven storytelling. And then I was told that because young people are progressive, that's what they're going after. They want to target young people, and young people are progressive, so that's the narrative that they're pursuing. So all of a sudden, there was this shift where it was like, tell the truth to side with the audience. Tell them what they want to hear.
Right.
And that's what happened. There you go.
It's like
and
that
was 2014. Right. The idea, I think, and then CNN obviously adopts a similar...
A dealer.
Right. The CNN and all these media outlets adopted the exact same thing. They, you know, look at this show. We're not the most tribal show, but there's tribalism entrenched in what we do, of course, because everybody has got a perspective. We're clearly in the right-wing sphere of influence, whatever you want to call it, including libertarians, conservatives, and post-liberals. We have direct disagreements with establishment media, establishment personalities, and the leftists who outright support them. So that's there. But if you take a look at the prominent right-wing voices, they're like middle of the road. If you take a look at the left, they're hard left, pro-establishment.
Right.
So when you have the left claiming, and I mean the legit left, the socialists, Joe Biden's bad, we can't support him. We all voted for him, and we think you should vote for him too. Like, that was the funniest thing, watching these socialists be like, we don't like Joe Biden, but you have to vote for him. And I was like, this dude is the epitome. He's like Goldman Sachs, you know, big banker, elite, corporate, neocon, neolib. For what reason would any leftist support that? I guess because they're fascists or whatever?
No, they don't have principles. They literally do not have principles. What's most important to them is trying to establish a specific social order, and however they have to get their hands dirty along the way, they're willing to, as long as they end up getting the pieces in the right place eventually.
And this is interesting because you asked me before the show if I was conservative now, and talking about walking away, and I said, no, I don't think so. I think the issue is just, as I mentioned a moment ago, if you believe the lies or not, if you trust the narrative from the establishment or you question it, is what really separates the spheres of influence.
Yeah.
So when you see, we did this thing with ground.news. You can look up someone's news consumption bias. Invariably, you pull up a left-wing personality and it'll say all of like 80 or 90% of their news consumption is left-wing sources. You pull up people like, Michael Malice or me, and it says a balance of left, right, and center. Mine, I think, is 55% left-wing sources, then like 20% center, and the rest is right.
I think mine was 30 or 35.
But then a lot of conservative personalities are like 60% conservative, and then like 15 and 15 of centrist or left-wing, but they have way more left-wing news in their diet than the left has the other way around. Mm-hmm. So you'll see that. Then what happens is we bring someone on the show, this like former conservative guy, and he outright told me the Joe Biden quid pro quo thing didn't happen. I was like, so you get Joe Biden saying, SOB, the guy got fired. And he goes, that didn't happen. And he like smirks, and I was like,
he said he couldn't let that stand or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
It was
that's
even
right.
Further than that.
Like, I can't let that stand. That didn't happen. And I was like, yes, it did. And he's like, no, it didn't. I was like, okay. And I pulled the video up, and I'm like, here's a video, watch it. And he was like, oh. And I'm like, and? Like, what? Are you serious? You didn't Google it? You just heard it and you thought it was true? That's the thing, man. The Covington kid stuff, I don't just believe it. People are like, you got to see this, man. People on the right were critical of them. And I was like, well, what happened? And we have a lot of that going on right now. Like, there was that story of that young girl in the school who was sexually assaulted in Loudoun County. And everyone on the right is just saying it was a trans person. And I'm like, that was never part of the story. They just started saying that. And I'm like, if you actually look it up, the kid never said they were trans. At least that's my understanding, having read the story. I was like, if someone says something happened, I don't care if on the left or the right, I'm going to read it. It turns out reality has a conservative bias. At least in my investigation, in my doing of journalism and fact checking, that's what I found. The left lies about everything. Should we do the list again?
Yeah.
Russiagate, Ukraine-gate, Jussie Smollett, Michael Brown, Ahmaud Arbery. What are we missing? Trayvon Martin. Wow, the media George Floyd, the media.
Charlottesville.
Oh yeah, Joe Biden's whole campaign.
Oh yeah.
Lies nonstop.
Yeah.
And then the left tries to talk about the Republicans, and I'm like, yeah, who's praising Mitch McConnell right now?
Right.
I don't know anybody who's actively in politics who's like, that's a great guy. I'm a big fan of him. But what is he even saying in terms of facts? Nothing. So I don't consider myself a conservative. I consider myself someone who is interested in what's true and what's real.
You said something earlier that's interesting, because I think a lot of people, a problem they're having is when they hear something that they don't necessarily want to believe, they just immediately say, that's not real. No. But a strong mind is capable of tending an idea without believing it or disbelieving it, just allowing it to exist and considering it.
Well, what you just described is literally the experience that I had that created the sort of epiphany. That created sort of the epiphany for me that began the journey of me walking away, because it's not to bore anybody who's heard this. Okay. After Trump got elected, I had voted for Hillary. I was devastated, and I was really acting out about it. I was really angry. And one of the things that I said was in January of 2017. So it was around the time he was about to take office. I went on Facebook and I blasted conservatives in this post where I just said, I'll never be able to understand how anyone could vote for a man who was capable of standing before a cheering crowd and mocking a reporter's disability. Do you remember that one? Yeah. And that's when somebody that I knew, she was my babysitter when I was a kid, this woman, Diane, she was always a conservative, but she reached out to me privately on Facebook with this video called Debunking That Trump Mocked the Disabled Reporter. And she was like, I'm just wondering, have you seen this? I'm not trying to start a fight with you. But I remember my instinct when just reading the title of the video, I was so enraged that anyone would try to debunk that he did that, because I was like, but I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes. I know he did it. CNN told me he did it. And then I decided to watch the video, because I thought to myself, well, it's going to be really clear that this is like right-wing propaganda and Fox News brainwashing, so then I can tell her how stupid she is for falling for it. And I watched it, and it was like I almost dissociated from my body, because my brain was like screaming at me like, oh my God, I don't think he mocked that reporter's disability. But my heart was like going, yeah, but we hate him, but we hate him, but we hate him. And I had to watch it 4 times before I could reconcile within myself that I was wrong. But then it took me at least another week or 2 before I was able to go back to Diane, that woman, and be like, okay, I may be changing my mind about this one thing, not about Trump, but about this one incident. But that set me down the road of trying to figure out what was going on with the media.
And I just want to make a point here. I remember that story as well, and when I heard it, I didn't look too deeply into it. I thought I think it's horrible if he said something like that. Of course, it turned out to be fake news, because basically everything they say turns out to be fake news. But even so, even if he had done something as horrible as mock somebody with a disability, because of Hillary Clinton, there are slave markets back in Libya. She completely decimated a country. And I'm sorry, but that's worse. That is so much worse. Even if Trump actually did it, which he didn't, It is worse to destroy an entire country to the point where slavery has returned to the region.
So I didn't vote in 2016 because I was just like, are you kidding me? Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I heard what Trump was saying, but I was like, please, I've heard this all before. It's the back and forth nonsense. But I did think it'd be real hilarious if Trump ended up winning just because it's Trump. And then when Hillary lost, it was just so hilarious. But when it came to Joe Biden versus Trump, I was flabbergasted at the leftists who were like, we're going to vote for Joe Biden. And I was like, Joe Biden was the vice president under Barack Obama. The National Defense Authorization Act, indefinite detention provisions, expansion of the war in the Middle East, expansion of drone strikes, the bombing of civilians, and then saying, oh, but they're military age males, the extrajudicial assassination of American citizens. And I was like, you screamed that George W. Bush was Hitler. And now you've got the vice president of a guy who killed American citizens without charge or trial. I'm voting for Trump because what? He was no new wars. There were more drone strikes as we were pulling troops. I was like, okay, look, Trump's not that bad, right? I was like, I hear all the complaints the left makes about him. I think his attitude, his character was like unbecoming of a presidential office. All of that stuff matters to a lot of people. Decorum does matter. But for me, I'm like, it matters relatively little compared to a booming economy in 2019. I don't blame him for COVID. I don't blame Joe Biden for COVID. But then looking at Joe Biden in the election, and I was like, if that guy gets elected, we'll be right back in Syria. We're gonna have new war. Mark my words, it is gonna get worse. And Donald Trump had some good second-term policy positions. So I said, okay, what do we get? Wow, man. I want to make sure everybody hears this. When you go to the gas pump and you see that little Joe Biden that says, I did that, that's not a joke. Joe Biden shut down Keystone. Joe Biden introduced new regulations on gas. He banned, he put a freeze on oil and gases on federal land. There's a lot he's done. We had that video from Hawley where he goes through all of the policies. And you know why Joe Biden did it? Climate change. Yep. Now, I'm not making a moral statement on climate change. I think pollution and all this stuff is really, really bad. I think there are issues with these massive population centers overpopulating or polluting. But if you are wondering why your gas prices are high, it is because the people who are scared about climate change are enacting policies specifically because of climate change. They are saying they are doing it, and it's causing economic crises. If you're cool with that because you think climate change is bad, well, just admit it. That's fine. I'm not issuing a moral statement. But Joe Biden literally did this because of climate change. And now we've got reports that farms are being paid not to farm. They're being paid to build solar farms instead. Yep. I mean, it's very obvious what they're doing, just not telling people. But that's the reason. If you're a climate change activist, be proud. Those high gas prices mean less people will drive and lower carbon emissions. And if you're a middle American working class person who's struggling to pay your bills, that's why it's happening.
But do you feel like your words will resonate with these people? I mean, this kind of goes back to the conversation you and I were having before the show. I mean, like, if Trump were to run again, are enough people getting it that it actually would make a difference? Because I actually believe that a lot of people on the left are willing to pay $6 a gallon for gas or more if they believe that we don't have Hitler in office again.
Well, I just want to say this. I mean, your former babysitter had faith that she could reach you.
Right.
And it worked, right?
It worked when I was faced with the realization that something that here's the thing. I learned that my feelings were being manipulated by the people that I trusted. I trusted CNN. I thought that they were honest, and I hated people like Donald Trump, and I hated people like Republicans because I thought that they were bad people. I thought they were people that did things like make fun of disabled people, and everyone laughs and cheers. But as it turns out, to me, I say this all the time, and as a gay person, I always say this, like, the left will pretend like they're the people that care about black people and brown people and LGBT people and all this stuff. But the thing is, they're actually lying and manipulating and exploiting all of these people to get them to think the way they want them to think and behave and vote the way that they want them to vote. I will, any day of the week, take the enemy that will look into my eyes and say, I don't like gay people. I'll never be down with you. I don't like you. Then the person who says, no, I'm your friend. I'm on your side. I'm here to protect you. But they're actually lying to me and manipulating me. And that's what I discovered through that experience.
I want to answer what he's asking. Yeah. But put a tag in that.
Yeah.
What I want to say is, are people getting the message? It depends on how you all at home are delivering the message. If you have someone who is deep blue, vote blue no matter who, going to them and being like, it's your fault that gas prices are so high because Joe Biden and these climate, not going to work. You can do two things. Me, I prefer the middle of the road, straightforward approach where when I'm talking with someone who I know might not agree, I'll just be like, man, you see those gas prices? And they'll go, yeah, dude. I'll be like, that's crazy. What is it? It's like $6 in Pennsylvania.
Jeez.
It's like almost upwards of $8 in some parts of California. But hey, man, look, what we're seeing, Joe Biden, he wants to fight climate change. You know, so they want to shut down Keystone Pipeline because they don't want the oil moving through, and then you get speculation, which drives prices. I mean, Russia and all that stuff plays a role, but these prices were skyrocketing before that. So, look, I mean, if you guys want to be serious about climate change, this is what happens. That is an effective message. They might say, yeah, I get it. It's bad, and I'm suffering because of it. Or you can do the even more manipulative, which is, you see gas prices? $8 a gallon in California? Bro, high five. You know what this means? It means no one's driving. Good. They shouldn't be driving anyway if they can't afford electric cars.
That's right.
These people think, I can come out and talk about climate change, but they do nothing. They keep eating, they keep guzzling, they keep flushing their toilets. They take half-an-hour showers during droughts. Good. I hope they cry every time they see that $8 per gallon price. And that's Joe Biden who did that. Joe Biden sent a strong message to these American gluttons who are burning through carbon every single day. We will end climate change, mark my words, and Joe Biden will do it. And then regular people are going to be like, that was psychotic.
That's what you say in the intersection before you drive up in your Tesla to the guy next to you.
Exactly. So that's the more manipulative approach where you make someone be like, that's a crazy position. I don't want gas prices this high. I'm not a fan of that, but that is, you know, I mean, it's
one way to go.
yeah, it's
Sometimes
like
you have to go there.
It's like black propaganda. It's like shocking someone with, you know, what's going on. But I mean, I got to be honest, you don't even need to do that because maybe just show them a video of someone, you know, at like the DSA convention where they were like, my name's John, he, him. Can people stop clicking their pens because it's driving my anxiety? And then someone gets up and goes, stop saying guys. And then they're all yelling. I'm like, just show them that video. But in all reality, the way to effectively give someone the message is just to be polite about it and say, Joe Biden said he wanted to fight climate change. So he passed some regulations that caused hiccups in the energy sector. He's not responsible for all of the escalation of gas prices, but he played a big role. I mean, a year before he came in office, gas was at like $2. Now it's at like $4 to $5. So, I mean, that's obvious that you know, climate change policy.
I also kind of stopped playing the game of trying to change people's minds in one conversation. And play more of the chipping away with just honesty and kindness and listening to them because they're probably not completely wrong about everything anyway. So it's nice to hear.
No, that's a good point. Well, no, I mean, there's an old saying, in every heresy, there's a kernel of truth. I mean, people believe things because there is like some shred of goodness there that they're trying to scrape at. And if you can figure out what that little kernel of goodness is, you can show them the truth and how it really fully embodies that. I'm not saying it always works. Well, I am saying I agree with what Ian is saying, that there is something there about like trying to figure. Now, obviously, we have people in this culture who are like completely bad faith actors or totally morally depraved. But I'm saying like someone you might meet in your everyday life who could be persuadable.
So I think it's the left and not the right. Right? This is just reality. The right has post-liberals. These are people who are the walkaway people.
Yeah.
They're still very politically liberal in a lot of issues, but they have aligned themselves now with Republicans. Pew Research showed that, what do they call, the stressed sideliners lean right on political issues. And it's probably because the left keeps moving further and further left, like that Elon Musk meme. So when you see, there's one thing right now about me, because I'm staunch 2A. People are wondering what position I've changed on. I went from, I think guns are cool. Maybe we can have some, you know, simple gun reforms that might make everybody happy too. Not all guns, like guns are legal. 2A, if you got a problem with it, you got to change the Constitution. So I said on an episode that the Second Amendment protects the right to keep and bear nuclear arms and biological arms. But I'm not wrong. Now, just because Second Amendment protects it doesn't mean it's legal, you can do it, or you should be able to do it. So they take a clip of me, cut out the context where I'm like, people have the right to have nukes. And Ian's like, and biological weapons? I'm like, absolutely. And then they cut out the part where I'm like, that doesn't mean they should. It means that when the Second Amendment was codified in the Constitution, people had warships that could flatten coastal cities. And the Founding Fathers knew that and were like, you can have it. The right to keep and bear arms. And so there's a lot of sophistry in the Second Amendment argument where they say like, but a well-regulated militia. That has nothing to do with what the actual prescription of the Second Amendment is. They're saying because of this need, the people have a right to keep and bear arms. And arms means arms. Does it say except nuclear in the Second Amendment? It doesn't. Should it? Perhaps it should. And that's something we will need to change. But that's something I've changed on for sure. Now, what happens is, in this whole issue, they're sharing that clip out of context, and then they create fake context around it.
Yeah.
And so after they post that clip, the morsel of truth Seamus mentioned, they then will add something like, and after this, Tim said this, which I didn't say. And then people believe it because they saw a video and then saw someone telling them the story. Someone will say, Tim Pool thinks everyone should have a nuclear weapon because he wants humanity to be wiped out. Here's the video. Here's proof. Wow. And then people go, wow. Then they say, Tim Pool also claims that China manufactured COVID to wipe out white people or something like that, which is like something they're actually trying to claim. What? And these are high-profile left-wing accounts. That's why I say when you look at the right, the reality has a conservative bias, at least for now. Maybe it'll change in 10 years.
What do you mean? What does that mean exactly?
Reality? It means, so Stephen Colbert had the famous quote, reality has a liberal bias. And what the point he was making, I guess, was that the liberal media, as conservatives call it, tends to be true and they're fake news. Therefore, reality must have a liberal bias. The reality is today, if you're talking to a conservative personality, Ben Shapiro, great example. If you listen to Ben Shapiro, you are 99% of the time going to hear the absolute truth. To the best of his ability. I don't mean like the dude is omniscient, but he's going to be like, we got a new report coming out from the New York Times that says,
we have a new report from the New York Times, right? This is what it says, folks. This is why they're absolutely wrong.
But he will tell you what they're saying.
Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks will just say nonsense.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you watch his show, this is why, you watch the Young Turks, they'll just say things that are plumb not true. Or they'll just make dramatic, personalized, like personal arguments that have nothing to do with the issues. Ben Shapiro, he told us, he's like, I don't debate people. I have discussions with them, but they're, the left will constantly be arguing. So what do? The video that goes viral of Ben Shapiro is some kid being like, well, you can't please your wife. And then the left is like, oh, and they'll high five each other. And I'm like, okay, why would anyone want to be associated with that? And what does that have to do with the principled arguments we're having? Thus, you talk to someone on the right, you'll end up hearing closer to the truth than the left.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. It's only because this liberal economic order has its fangs in the neck of the American citizen.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.